All right, so we're going to do a category of all the new forward-facing sonar products. So graphs, minnows, jigheads, all that stuff. And we're actually right here with our buddy Minnow at the Japan Import Tackle booth. And we've already got to see a couple of these things, but we're going to talk about some of the new products from Engine and then Fish Arrow. So let's start off with the Fish Arrow.
Well, Jackall, wonderful seeing you.
It was great seeing you too.
Welcome. So, Engine, you said?
No, the Fish Arrow.
Fish Arrow.
Yeah, that little guy. I got to see one of those, and I think we just had one single one, and I was like, that thing looks really cool.
Right. So the Fish Arrow do have already established brand Flash J, which comes with all that signature aluminum foil insert.
Yeah, those we've had those forever, and those are killer little baits.
Yeah, this is actually 20 years old bait.
Yeah.
It's been here a long time. Now the introduction of the live scope, more and more anglers are utilizing that function.
Yeah.
And what they are introducing at this year's ICAST is a Flash J Spin Elastomer. This is an elastomer material, so see how durable it is?
Really strong material.
Yeah, with this extra spin on the tail. This idea itself is not new.
No.
But adding it to Flash J bait with the elastomer material, bait lasts a lot longer.
Yeah.
And fish can strike.
It's a really cool bait. I mean, it looks phenomenal.
Right. It still has the signature aluminum foil, so it still shows up, clearly. And you have the jig head, flashing aluminum foil, and extra braid. It shows even more.
So that's really cool. The blade will get it to help accentuate that action, get it to roll side to side. So if you're fishing on a jig head, with that foil on the inside, there's not many minnows out there that have any kind of foil or flash in the inside of it like that.
Right.
So just something that's different and really looks natural, a really cool, unique bait. I remember when I first started Tackle Warehouse, I pulled one of those out of a bin. I'd never seen one before, and I was immediately hooked. I was like, I have to get one of these. They look so cool. So we got them in multiple sizes?
Yeah. What I'm holding is a 4-inch, and they come with a 3-inch also. Okay,
so 2 sizes, a bunch of great colors, and then we've also got these Engine baits, these baby-like guys, and this is a tiny, tiny little guy. And I'm sure, is there more sizes of these too?
Yeah, there are more sizes coming, but this is the first one coming. I think this is the 2-inch version.
So the very first sample of it.
Yes.
And a tiny, tiny little bait. So, so tell us a little bit about this bait.
So Engine is a kind of new brand. They have known for super finesse minnow bait like this, and this is probably the smallest size.
I mean, it's the smallest one I've seen at the show so far.
Yeah, I mean, Japan is the land of finesse fishing.
Yes.
And finesse is taken to an extreme turn.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, this is going to be ultralight line fishing. I mean, this is like 2 to 4 pound test type of stuff.
Exactly, you got that right. And that's what Japanese people are fishing. Japanese bass don't bite anymore. So bait goes smaller, and this is probably not for US bait yet.
Someone's gonna try it.
Somebody gotta try it.
Yeah,
it works under the highest, most difficult conditions.
Well, I mean, we're seeing a big surge of finesse fishing, even at the pro elite levels. I mean, guys are using those little the dice style baits, and using 5 pound test on places like Lake Fork, which you would never would have saw that, even 5 years ago. And now top level pros are using ultra finesse techniques on some of the big bass fisheries that you would never think to use that kind of stuff, but it's getting to the point where everyone has to be do some kind of finesse fishing. No matter what, you can't just be a flipper or a crankbait guy anymore. You have to have finesse fishing in your arsenal, and it's getting more and more difficult. And the techniques, there's more and more techniques coming out every single week. So, so you guys are staying ahead of the curve and giving the anglers more options. Stuff that's it's really lifelike, really small, and ultra finesse tactics. Well, that's going to wrap it up here at the Japan Import Tackle booth. And all right, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us and showing us some of the new gear. And I know there's a few other things I want to check out, but we got to keep going.
Right.
All right.
Well, great.
Thanks, guys.
You.
All right, I'm over at BKK with Joe, and we're going to talk about some new hooks. And honestly, I've only seen a picture of it earlier this year, but I'm super stoked to get one in my hands. This is probably the hook that I was most excited about this year at ICAST, these new Permalock hooks.
Well, we appreciate it, Jake. It's definitely something that hits home for us. BKK's an international company, but we're Florida-based. in the U.S. So we kind of designed something with a little bit of Florida in mind, but is super versatile all over the country. So to be able to go with a weighted or an unweighted version and really cover all 50 states, it was really the goal.
Yeah, it's a cool hook. And what did you guys design this for?
So its first and most obvious application would be for those fluke guys, especially if you're fishing around like vegetation like spatter dots or lily pads, but it can also be used for like that gambler, easy swimmer, or any of that style swim bait if you're bringing it through just any type of aquatic vegetation like grass.
So, I mean, it is like it solves so many issues with having, you know, like weedless, minnow, soft jerkbait style presentations.
Oh, yeah.
And it's such a pain, but man, having this weighted option has that little tungsten weight on the inside. So just, I mean, and it's great that it's tungsten, so you're getting way more weight up there in the head than you would with a lead one.
For sure, and it places the mass of that weight in the right spot on a bait to give you the right action and the right fall if you're going to dead stick something.
And so it's not a bunch of lead out in the front.
Right.
It's not going to just immediately nosedive.
Yeah, you don't have a nosedive or a backslide or anything like that.
Yeah, it's super cool. I mean, so any kind of weedless application where you want to run like a small swim bait or a soft jerk bait and gonna get it through cover, live scoping around brush and stuff.
For sure. And even those guys that like to use any type of forward-facing sonar with like the humdinger worm, anything with a blade on the back of a stick bait style bait, it's gonna be super effective.
It's great for all that, and I just want to use it for a bunch of stuff because for me personally, it just solves so many problems. And you know, some baits like a Zoom Super Fluke, I mean, sometimes it forces you to slow down.
Oh, yeah.
Because you can't keep that thing down sometimes.
For sure.
And you know, there's sometimes less than ideal conditions. You have to go up to a super heavy wire hook just to keep it down.
Yep.
And it's like not all the time you want that super heavy wire hook.
Right.
So just adding that weight to it and getting it in there and just being able to fish that bait, you know, get the presentation that you want and keep it down.
For sure. It allows you to present stuff in a way that looks super natural all the time, and that's the goal, right? These fish are only getting smarter.
Yeah, every day it's getting harder and harder to catch them, but I think that hook just solves a lot of problems and it's going to be a great tool for people. And there's so many applications you can do with it. I'm super stoked. And you can get the weighted or unweighted hook, but you can also get just the weights.
Yep.
So if you need just the weights, if you have a favorite hook in mind, and you're like, man, I wish I could really get, you know, instead of Texas rigging it with a bullet weight, and if you want to get some weight into a hook, that easily snaps right into place. So super cool that you guys are offering all three options. So a new hook right now that you can pre-order at tacklewarehouse.com from BKK. All right, I'm here at the Geecrack booth with Alton Jones Jr. I'm super stoked to be with this guy. Man, I've seen you over the last few years just hammering the competition on some of this Geecrack stuff, you know, a bunch of different products they got. We're covering some of these baits that really apply to the forward-facing sonar fishing. Yeah. And we got the Q-Bomb. So have you been using them on your forward-facing fishing?
I have. And you know, it's really unique. So like it's all these JDM products. It's been a learning process for me over the years being with Geecrack, really opening my mind. You know, you look at something like the Q-Bomb. When it sits in the water, it's got a very big profile. You think of like a mop jig. It stands totally out. You want something smaller, you'll cut it. But the reason we wanted that bigger profile is so it would show up on forward-facing sonar. A lot of the other hairy baits, they're a little small. And at range, it's hard to see. And additionally, with castability, you can cast this. Just why we wanted to. You got the smaller size, the 1 inch. You got the 1.2 here. And what was surprising to me is this fish, 99% of your bites come in the water column, not on the bottom.
Yeah.
And so I'm either throwing it with a weightless, if I'm shallow, a small Nico weight, or a drop shot.
Okay.
And if I'm throwing a drop shot, it's a long leader. The bait is meant to be fished up off the bottom. Yeah. Really shaking it hard, getting these tentacles to move. And then if I'm throwing it on like a Nico rig, I will let it go to the bottom. Yeah. If I'm not specifically looking at a fish, or if I'm fishing for a fish that I can visibly see on forward-facing sonar, I actually shake it almost like you would a minnow, keeping it above them and just letting those tentacles go crazy. And there are many, many times that a fish that simply, I'd argue they aren't in the mood to bite, but this has so much intrigue, such a unique profile.
Oh, totally.
That it'll get you that one step closer to getting the bite or actually put a big fish in the
I mean,
boat.
we've been seeing more and more of these over the last couple of years, and the first one we ever saw, like, what? There's no way they're getting bites with that.
I said the exact same thing. So I got hinted off to it, just my connections with the JDM market through Geecrack, and they're winning tournaments on this thing. And of course, I ordered some and I looked at it and I said, that's silly.
Yeah, there's
right?
Yeah.
And then as I began to throw it, just about anything I say is silly. Somebody wins $100,000 on it next week.
That's for sure what happens. I mean, anytime that you say that, like, oh, that thing's not going to work, that's when it gets big.
Yeah,
you know, so you can't ever talk bad about something you think is never going to work. But so, like you said, sometimes you rig it weightless. I think just out of curiosity for anglers out there. So does it sink when you fish it weightless?
It does.
What's about the sink rate with it?
The sink rate is very, very slow. I mean, we're talking a foot every 3 to 4 seconds.
Oh, so it's crazy slow.
Very
sink rate.
slow. I mean, much slower than your traditional stickworms.
Yeah, not like a Cinco or something.
But
like that.
You know, this flat side that we've got right here on the top of it receives a nail weight really, really well. That's why we did it. A lot of times, you know, just like a decoy, little screw lock weight, something like that, and it gets bit really well.
Really cool bait. Alden, you know, thanks for giving us the rundown and give us a little bit of education on these things. I think all of us, you know, we don't know really what to do with them and what the kind of intended purpose is for us. But thank you for taking the time. And I think you can buy these right now at Tackle Warehouse.
You can buy them there. I think they're back ordered, but you can place the order. So.
You know, you guys win another derb on these things, and then that's why they go out of stock. So, I mean, you see big money getting won on it, and it's hard to keep this stuff in stock. So sign up for the in-stock notifications if you want to get your hands on one of those Geecrack Q-bombs.
Geecrack.
Geecrack. Oh, it's so hard to figure out.
You can leave that in. It's Geecrack.
Yeah, it's Geecrack.
Geecrack.
That's what it is. All right, we are in the Dirty Jigs booth with Brooks, who is ICAST all-time best of show MVP. We want to put that out there, all right? Brooks is dialed every single year. You make our lives over at Tackle Warehouse so easy.
Flattered.
Every single year, me and my buddy Charlie are so stoked whenever we send the emails out. Brooks is the first one to email back with all the info. So
I'm quick on the trigger.
Brooks sets the standard for ICAST preparation. Let me tell you what. But you got a new jig head for Dirty Jigs. We got this new Tungsten Guppy HD.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah, so new for this year, obviously Dirty Jigs is known for a lot of things. One of the things that we've been known for years is the Guppy head. Especially as forward-facing sonar has increased in popularity. That regular Guppy head has been a gold standard. We decided this year to take it a step further. Obviously, guys are hyping up Tungsten right now. You've got that increased density and return on your unit. So we decided to expand our Guppy offering with a Tungsten HD Guppy. The HD meaning heavy duty. The hook on these is a must-add. It's a little bit thicker in wire diameter than our standard Guppy heads. This was coming straight from a Tactical Bass and Desire. Especially
we talked to those guys and they're like, we need a little bit heavier wire.
That's right. You know, those guys too, they're throwing these on that Hog Farmer mini rig. Pairs up really well with that. So they were looking for something a little bit heavier than standard, but also again, Tungsten for that increased sonar return. The other main difference that you're going to notice on these over the standard Guppy is it's a different bait keeper collar. It's the same collar as the Tactical Bassin Mini Underspin, which has been super popular. The Guppy head's kind of got that conical cone-shaped design. It tears up baits somewhat a little bit worse than we want it to. It's an upside-down barb. It's going to make your swim baits last a lot longer. And that's coming straight from Matt and Tim at Tactical.
Just fixing a little bit of the finer details.
That's right.
And super cool. And not just a forward-facing head, but many applications, like you said, throwing it on that mini Hog Farmer rig, which you know is an absolutely deadly little rig if you're looking for something smaller profile. But not a lot of jig heads, you know, especially Tungsten ones, small profile, but with a kind of it's not a full HD flipping hook. It's kind of a, you know, it's a mid-range hook, but it's got the power you need in a small package.
Exactly.
So a really cool jig head. You can pre-order right now. Thanks again, Brooks, for taking the time to give us a rundown on the new Dirty Jig Guppy Head HD Tungsten version. All right, so I made it over to the Berkley booth, and we're going to talk about flipping, frogging, braided lines, big rods. No, I'm going to ruin your day.
Oh, come on.
Oh, yeah. So I got Jordan Lee and Hunter Shryock, and we're going to talk about some new forward-facing baits. So first, you guys released these, you know, a few months ago. We got the Krej and the Finisher. So tell us a little bit about these. Let's start with you, Hunter.
So the Krej, right off the rip, obviously, it's got the inverted bill. You know, Krej is jerked backwards. So to me, this bait can be utilized in so many different ways, and we're still learning new ways to use it. But the whole concept of the bait is it sinks. When you cast it out, it can cast really far. It hits the water, it sinks backwards, so it sinks away from you. And when you basically can get it to any depth you want, and that's the cool thing about it, optimized for forward-facing sonar, so you can reach brush piles, deep ledges, whatever, 15, 20, 30 feet. It's going to sink pretty fast, and then once you see those fish, you can twitch it away from them, you can reel it, and it also works as a topwater bait. So real subtle, wind it in real slow, and it caught a lot of fish at Lake Murray this season, and it's just, we're still learning how many different ways we can catch them on it.
Okay, and then we got two-time classic champion.
You don't have to go through the whole spiel.
No, it's a heavy hitter.
Heavy hitters.
Mr. Toho.
Yeah,
Mr. Toho.
All braided line.
We got his new frog here.
Yeah.
So
I wish.
The new the finisher bait. So tell us a little bit about this one. So have you been using this one this year?
I have, not really in the tournament scene, but fun fishing, Lake Lanier, Smith Lake, a lot of deep clear lakes, and the minnow craze. We all know about it. Everybody's shaking a minnow now.
Oh yeah.
And this is like I would say a different variation of that. You can snap this bait using forward-facing sonar over those schools of fish, and a lot of times with that minnow now, you get a lot of short strikes, fish coming up and just bumping that. This with the treble hook, you get some unique action. When you pop your rod, it's going to dart back and forth. You got a couple different sizes, and it's just a different look for these fish. Caught some big spots on that this winter. It's like a vertical jigging bait for me right now, but you can use it in all different depths of the water, from surface down to 40 foot of water, and we got fast sink. So it can get down there pretty quick to them.
And anytime you can put some treble hooks on something for spotted bass, it just helps out a ton. And it's hard to escape a couple of Berkley Fusion 19 trebles on there.
That's right.
And we just also heard there's a sneak peek. Jordan Lee's got a new advanced sonar that he can see under the mats.
Yep.
And he can
you
find all the
supposed
frogs.
to release that yet.
Yeah, this is classified information.
Come on.
It cuts through the grass.
We broke all the NDAs, so that's how he catches
That's
all
what
those
happens
fish.
at Tackle Warehouse. They're just breaking my NDAs.
He doesn't even have to look at the mat anymore. He just looks at the screen. It shows him where all the frog fish are at. So, and we also got new forward braid. Now, this braid is totally unlike any other braid out there on the market. It's not like an 8-strand woven. Have you guys used it yet this year?
I have.
So tell us a little bit about it.
So to me, right off the rip, it's so smooth. It's not that coarse, like what you have in normal
feels like
traditional
a
braid.
mono or a fluorocarbon. It doesn't feel like braid at all.
It kind of, to me, Fireline has been around for years, and we talked about it. Me and Hunter talked about how it seems like an updated, super good quality Fireline to us, and the line twist. I haven't had hardly any, to me, spinning reels, when you're throwing all these little light baits, you're going to have twist in your line. On this, I have not had like a bird's nest yet on it, and to me, that's a big deal. When I can fish for a long time with the same line, and it just lasts. So it's a really cool feeling line that I think we're all going to use.
And obviously for forward, Berkley's put a lot into forward-facing sonar recently, and so now we got the whole scope of your line. When you're doing a jighead minnow, the whole scope of your line dictates when you're pulling that bait, how fast you can work it, how fast the braid cuts through the water. So having a braid that's thinner and slicker, it's not going to hold onto that water, so it actually cuts through the water quicker.
So it sinks a little faster, so you get a more little direct line contact.
When you're looking at a normal braid, there's all those little, it's intertwined, and it starts to fray eventually. And there's under a microscope, you can see that fray of a normal braid, and it actually holds the water. It's not a lot, but when we're talking about an 1/8-ounce jig head getting down to 25 foot, any little bit of drag makes a big difference. So this line doesn't have that. It's completely fused together, so it's going to cut through it super fast.
Especially on the end of those just bomber casts. There's so much line out there, and these jig heads you guys are throwing, they're tiny.
And this is a big one right here.
Yeah. That's
Quarter ounce.
That's Jordan Lee's
my heaviest
Is the
heaviest
new
one.
Jighead frog?
Yeah. You're not supposed to tell anybody about that either.
So that's the other thing we're going to talk about is a new Berkley Fusion 19. It's the Fusion 19 hybrid Jighead.
Yeah, and you know, there's two different hook sizes on this. Like I said, this is a 1/4 ounce. We got, I believe, 1/8 ounce, and
We got
several
all kinds of different-
sizes.
yes,
I mean,
a
any
lot.
size you want, but the hook in it is just that perfect to me. You don't want a thick gauge wire. You don't want something that's really just super light. And this is just that perfect in between, I would say, that you can catch a bunch of fish on. It's got a nice little keeper right here for your minnows, and you know it's going to hold them up. But yeah, new Jighead. It's
Great
got the eyes.
Jighead. And I saw some of the other baits floating around. You guys got a new Trip Minnow, Trip Swimmer.
Yep.
So a bunch of really cool baits from Berkley this year. I know you can pre-order it all right now on tacklewarehouse.com. And the guys, thank you so much for taking the time for us stopping by, unscheduled. You know, just popping in and showing off all the new Berkley stuff available right now at Tackle Warehouse. So I'm down at the Jackall booth. I'm with Ariel, who's been a rep for I don't know how long.
It's been 12 years.
12 years, longer than I've even worked at Tackle. So we're going to cover the Driftfry minnow, which is probably one of the top selling, hottest minnow baits out there on the market right now for forward-facing sonar. And I'll be honest, the first time I saw it, I was like, what are they thinking with it? What are you guys doing with this bait? And give us a little rundown of this bait and what it does and what separates this from all the other minnows.
Okay, obviously the hot thing right now is forward-facing sonar and that minnow-style bait. What makes ours different is obviously the lip, so that's unique to our bait. So people always ask, what's that lip for? It serves two purposes. One, it helps rolling action with the tail, but the main thing is it actually slows down the bait when you're mid-strolling. So without the lip and you're strolling towards the boat or wherever you're fishing, it's going to move too fast. With that lip, it acts as a rudder. It slows it down and has that rolling action, so it stays more in place, steady and in place. So that's what the lip is. Also, we added that hole feature in the lip. You can see it more predominantly on the 4-inch. So if you're hover strolling, that's where you're inserting your nail weight.
So if you're using just the straight hook with the nail weight, so you got a perfectly placed spot to put that nail weight.
Rather than forcing it in the body and it'll get in the way of your actual hook.
That's really cool. I mean, just little details you guys thought of. And to be honest, when I saw it, I was like, well, am I supposed to fish it like a jerkbait? It's got
that's
a lip
what a lot
on
of people were
and
asking
you're
about.
probably like trying to you're probably tearing it up, trying to put an EWG through it and snap it and do all that. Not what it's made for. And I know there's two models. There's the regular one and then there's the Mellow.
Yeah, the 5.2 Mellow is the exact same features of the 4.0, but the only difference is the material. It's a softer material, so because it's bigger, we want it lifelike, so we had to make it a softer material compared to the 4-inch.
Really cool. And like I said, there's probably one of the hottest baits out there on the market right now. We've seen it win tons of money over the course. I mean, just this year alone, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of dollars have been won on this bait. And these things absolutely fly out of the warehouse. As soon as they hit the warehouse, they fly out the door. So if you want some, you gotta sign up for those in-stock notifications, and you gotta order those things immediately, because if you don't, someone else right behind you will. And then you've also got the new counterback spoon.
Yes.
And we saw this earlier, and man, I didn't know all the details of this spoon. And all the little intricacies and things that it does. So give us a rundown on this new spoon.
Okay, so the person who's winning all the tournaments right now with Driftfry, he's the person who actually designed this bait, Kiyoya Fujita. So
oh, really?
Yes. According to him, he tested hundreds of spoons, and the typical spoon here in our market is a fluttering spoon, right?
Yeah.
He noticed when you add a backslide action, it gets bit more, just because it's in the strike zone much longer, and it looks more of like a fleeing bait fish.
Okay.
Which is why he made the face away from it. So when it's backsliding, that face
it looks
is there.
like
It
it's
looks
swimming.
like that bait fish. Yes.
Yeah.
So his design, he decided to make it an asymmetrical design. You can see that here. The cup design is a little bit different with that curve here. That aids in that backsliding technique. So rather than fluttering just like that, on slack line, it will wiggle and just go back like that. So you can fish it under docks. It's good for ledges and everything else.
Man, a really cool spoon. I didn't know he was responsible for designing that spoon. And I mean, not to skip on, some of the phenomenal colors that are in this lineup of spoons. Most of the time, spoon colors are, they're pretty basic, chrome and chrome blue and gold. And you guys have done a really great job of just giving some just amazing colors and just all the details. The feather dress, super sharp treble hook on there. You got the swivel already on there, ready to fish right out of the package. Really cool stuff from Jackall this year. Available to pre-order. Thank you very much, Ariel, for taking the time to give us a rundown and the kind of the inside scoop of all this new stuff from Jackall. All right, guys, I'm in the Beatdown Outdoors booth with Justin, and I mean, you guys have got some serious mounting systems in this booth, but one that we want to check out is this new rear forward-facing sonar mount. So Justin, give us a rundown on this whole mount system and how it works.
Yeah, so this whole concept was actually a vision of mine probably about 7 years ago. I had built a homemade version of this in a sense that it wasn't even electronic. It was more of a manual, stuck in one position that I've actually ran it on my boat for 7 years. Now we've, at Beatdown Outdoors, released a fully electronic version of a rear forward-facing sonar pole. What's great about this is it all runs off of a wireless Bluetooth remote. You can raise and lower it in and out of the water. So when you go to move from spot to spot, you can lift it up to keep it from getting damaged or let it down into the water. And also I can steer this remotely from my console. It steers all wirelessly with the wireless remote from your console. So not only is this good for scanning for fish, but now when you're fishing a team tournament with your buddy, he has his own forward-facing sonar on the back deck of the boat. So you're not standing there shoulder to shoulder fighting it, who gets to cast at the fish. Your buddy on the back deck can, cast at his own fish.
That is absolutely wild. So, I mean, like you said, multiple applications, driving around. When you're driving around idling, you can look for fish manually with that, which is really cool. And then also, I never thought about, when you have someone else on your boat and they're standing back there looking at the back of someone the whole time, and they're up there picking up all the fish. They got something to do now, and two people can scope at the same time on one boat, which is absolutely crazy that we're even at this point now.
For sure.
So really cool product if you're outfitting a boat. I mean, some people's boats look like this with graphs and stuff everywhere. So if you're outfitting a boat and you want the latest, best technology you can get, definitely want to look into this new Beatdown outdoor mount system. All right, down in the missile booth with Byron, our buddy.
Yes.
John Cruz big leagued us. No, he's got more important stuff to do.
He's working on new products right now. So.
He's working on new products, doing more important business stuff, and but we want to talk about the new hover jig.
Yes.
The missile jig.
The hover missile. Hover missile.
Forgot the name of it.
Yep.
But man, that thing is really cool, and you guys got a nice little jig head for these little minnow baits. That is, all the rage right now, and you got to have something kind of that fits that kind of category. So, Byron, tell us a little bit about this jig head in particular.
Yes, so it's shaped like a missile, which is awesome. And it's designed with the pointed end back, so when you rig this, you're starting back here versus the nose. It's easier to slide that back in there. And then instead with the flat front, you don't have to stretch that up and around and spear it inevitably crooked every time. So it pops right in there. And then there's a hole in these and toothpicks in the package. So once you get that where you want it, you spear it with the toothpick, old school, and you can catch multiple fish on it.
Yeah, when these first came in, we rigged one up in the office, and once you get that thing in there and get that toothpick in it, that bait is locked.
It's not coming off.
It's not coming anywhere. And you guys got a whole range of sizes. So
got a bunch of sizes. We got a number 1 size hook, a 2/0 size hook, and a 4/0 size hook.
And so if you want to run it on the the little 3-inch baits, or all the way up to these 4 to 6-inch baits, they got a jig head that'll get you covered no matter what. So new hover missile.
Hover missile. All available at Tackle Warehouse.
Yeah, available right now. These came in a little while ago. You can buy these right now. So if you want to get your hands on them, head on over to tacklewarehouse.com. So we got a couple new baits here from NetBait. We got the new Exo Shad and then this Blip Minnow. So these are really cool little minnow baits for your forward-facing sonar. What's cool about this little Exo Shad is you can see they cut a bunch of the material out on there, so it's going to get that tail to move quite substantially. That's a really cool design. And then they've got this HexTek design that it's kind of like a honeycomb on the side of the body that actually helps it release more of that bait scent formula that's actually supercharged into this plastic itself. Same thing on the Minnow, has that same kind of exo skeleton on the outside, just increases surface area. You get more of the scent coming out of it, which is super key when fish are finicky and you're just trying to trigger more bites. But tiny little minnow guy, put it up on whatever kind of ball head you want, Jighead Minnow, and it'd be perfect for forward-facing sonar. All right, it's going to wrap up NetBait. We're going to keep moving on down the line. Okay, a couple new products from Hayabusa. Now, we got to see these earlier in the week, and these are really cool. These new hover hooks, I mean, not only is it a Hayabusa hook, which is crazy sharp to begin with, already has that gray slick coating on there and crazy, crazy sharp, but as you can see, all those tied keepers on there. So there's a keeper in the front, on the top, and the back, which really going to lock soft plastics into place if you're looking for the original style hover hook that's just the hook, and if you want to add your own nail weight, they've got you covered there. And then they've got this D-Striker swim head. So they put the line tie up really high on that. I remember when they were talking about it, and that's so you can add your loop knot and really get this thing to work back side to side. So a really nice jig head, and it's got that hand-tied mono keeper, which is an awesome feature. I know a lot of guys in our office really take the time to do that themselves, but Hayabusa is taking care of it for you, and they've got that little tiny weed guard on there so you can run it around a little bit of light brush and stuff like that and not get it hung up. So that's going to wrap up a new jig head and a new hook here from Hayabusa. All right, so we're down here at the Sea Clear booth. I'm with my buddy Mac, and we're gonna go over all kinds of wiring harnesses you guys have. And I know that for sure, you know, upgrading that wiring system is the best way to get the most performance out of those new graphs. So you got a couple new products, and let's go over those really quick.
Yeah, so we're gonna start to sell a 13-foot single run, and this is gonna be really good for guys that like to put their battery in the starboard rod locker, and just, you know, just kind of for dedicated live scope at the bow.
Yeah, so just another option. So if you're trying to accessorize your boat, you got a single option. If you just need the one piece, maybe you've already got a whole bunch of wiring.
Yeah.
Running from the front to the back, and you need to add more.
Yeah.
They got you covered there. And then there's a longer one if you're trying to run it front to back
as
well.
Yeah, so this one's 26 feet, and this will easily go from the back to the bow. If you already have the harness and you think it's not enough, you can add this with it, and it'll fully complete your setup. This is the wire size you need for all of the electronics you're ever going to put on your boat. The 8-gauge wire is exactly where it's at. It's going to make for a more solid connection that's going to last longer through the rough boat rides, trailering your boat across railroad tracks, rough bridges, rough roads. These connections are going to hold up. They're corrosion resistant, you know.
And you're just getting better power to those graphs just to get the maximum amount of performance out of them.
You know, the way the boats are laid out, it's really difficult to not put your batteries in the very back compartment. This is like putting the batteries right under the electronics.
So that's awesome. You know, just getting all that power up there and just really maximizing what you're putting. I mean, people are investing crazy amounts of money in these electronics now.
Yeah, of course.
And, you know, you don't want to skip on your wiring.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to get expensive electronics, you're going to get expensive batteries, so you need to have a good wire system. And they've also got a new option for kayak anglers, and that's even crazy. I've even seen kayak anglers with 3-4 graphs on a kayak. You know, people are it's getting out of control. So you got that harness and pretty much everything you would ever need to rig up a bass boat, a kayak, all that stuff. So so if you're looking to upgrade your electronics, do not skimp out on your wiring, and check out this stuff from Sea Clear and really get the maximum amount of performance out of those things and get the best picture you can, and just overall make everything perform at the very best it possibly can. So now from first gen, we got this new scope jaw underspin. This thing is super, super cool. And they've had this style jig head out for a little while now, but now available at underspin, and it looks totally crazy. And what it's made to do, you put a little minnow on the back of it, and that lip, it actually makes this thing glide side to side and kind of hovers around and kind of swims back and forth. It's a totally unique presentation. It's really cool. It's just something a little bit different than it's not going to go just straight up and down, you know, jig it like a minnow. It actually like hunts side to side, almost like a little miniature glide bait. It's a really cool idea. And now they've added an underspin blade to it, so you're getting a little bit of extra flash, a little bit more vibration. Just something to add that's a little bit different for all the, you know, the minnows and the jig heads. There's so many of them out there on the market, and there's nothing out there that looks like this. So make sure you check those out from first gen. All right, so we're back in the Rapala Crush City booth, And what do you know? What do we got? The Mooch Minnow. So probably the hottest bait of the year. Has won more money than probably any other soft plastic minnow bait out there on the market this year. Wheeler and Connell are not here right now to give us the rundown again. They're probably off enjoying their hundreds of thousands of dollars that they've won on this thing. So an incredible little minnow bait that's got that little tiny tail on it. It just gets a crazy little subtle action. If you guys want the full rundown from those guys, you can go over check out our Rapala interview, and Dustin Connell and Jacob Wheeler have really shown how effective this bait can be just by the sheer tournament wins and the top 5 finishes they've gotten all this year. And then also in the Freeloader, kind of the first one they came out with, they've got a bunch of new colors. So green pumpkin disco, electric shad, and then a perch color. So a couple new colors to already a super effective bait. And I think a few colors that everyone kind of wanted that were missing from the lineup that most anglers are like, yeah, can we get this, and this? Now the Rapala Crush City is making the colors that a lot of people have requested. So super stoked to get some new colors in that bait as well. Okay, from BMC, to go along with those Crush City Mooch Minnows and Freeloaders, they got some new Jigheads. So the Tungsten Neon Moon Eye, which is already a great design they've had in the lineup for a long time, that nice kind of aspirin style head shape. But I really like that new keeper on there, and it's tungsten compact profile, gonna get a great return on your live sonar. And then the Redline Tungsten Swimbait head. So a nice tungsten ball head, and then that's, again, another great keeper design, but with a stack cone keeper in the middle of the shank of the hook. So that thing's just gonna lock stuff into place. And then it's got the Redline hook. And if you haven't tried any of the VMC Redline hooks, they are crazy, crazy sharp. I think Dan, cameraman here, and Corey both stabbed themselves with a few of the prototypes. So it tells you right there, they're crazy, crazy sharp, but a couple new tungsten offerings for all the forward-facing minnow style fishing from VMC. Okay, and if you're looking for some new line for your spinning rod, if you're, throwing minnow baits out there way, way far, Suffix has got a new braided line, this Revolve braid. I believe Jacob Wheeler was working on this one for quite a while, and this stuff is really cool. So it's super smooth, but man, it is crazy thin. They've got it down in some small diameters too for a braid, I believe, all the way down to a 4-pound test, which is going to be like a strand of silk. So good luck trying to tie a connection knot with that. But if you need the most ultimate small diameter finesse style braid that's really smooth and it's going to cast really great, but also they made this to kind of reduce the wind knots and kind of problems that you get with spinning rods, especially if you're making lots of casts and you're pitching around and you're shaking minnows and stuff like that, getting a lot of slack in your lines. You can get a lot of wind knots, you can get tip wrap, and just cause a lot of frustration, line tangles. This is going to solve a lot of that issues. So if you're looking for a new braided line for your spinning rod, especially for minnow style fishing, there's a new Suffix Revolve braid there. We got yet another new jig head. This one from Gamakatsu. This is the Horizon head. This thing's really cool, and we got to see these earlier in the year. They actually came into stock earlier than the show at ICAST, so these are actually in stock right now. You can buy them at Tackle Warehouse. But that Horizon head, what's cool about it, look at that line tie that's super far up. So like some of the other jig heads out there, and something I didn't know, that having that line tie up above the bait a little bit higher allows you to put your loop knot in there, and it allows the bait to roll back and forth a lot easier than if the line tie is farther down on the jig head. So something that I didn't even know that was a thing and that you needed to consider when looking at jig heads, but now you got this jig head with a razor sharp Gamakatsu hook, and they've got an LG version that's just got this bigger kind of wide gap hook in it for those bigger style baits like your 5-6 inch, the bigger flukes, Sakamata shad, stuff like that. If you need one to carry a bigger soft plastic, they got that one, and then they got the regular Horizon head for the smaller baits as well. So a couple new jig heads from Gamakatsu for forward-facing sonar. So a couple new things from Buckeye Lures. The first one is the new G-Stroll head, designed by the man himself, Gerald Swindle. And as you can see, there's a bunch of lead up around the keeper, which kind of keeps everything in line and actually keeps your knot from sliding down, which is super cool. And they've got a 4-barb keeper on there, so that thing's gonna really hold your plastics on. And I love the extra gap that they put on that hook. And then the next one is the Freestyle head. I've actually got this one rigged up with a Yamamoto shad-shaped swimmer, but this one's designed by Brent Ayler, who may or may not be right behind the wall there. And this thing, it's a really cool head, so you can do all kinds of custom stuff with it. So you can screw on a swim bait. It's got a treble on there that you can run it hanging down. You can bury it into the body. You can take it off. You can take it off and put the hook up on the top and add a blade. There's all kinds of stuff you can do with that head. Just limitless options, and just a cool new head to kind of play around with if you're throwing minnows and doing all kinds of different live scope fishing. So it's a cool new options there from Buckeye. All right, so from Bill Lewis, we got this new depth charge bait. This thing is cool. I mean, I've never seen it before, and we just checked it out and we watched a video of it. This thing actually shimmies on the way down, so it sinks. It's a sinking bait. So it has this really cool action. I mean, it's almost like a shimmy action as like a soft jerk bait, but it goes all the way to the bottom, and then you can twitch it and it darts side to side. It does some really cool stuff. And then from Yamamoto, new sizes in the scope shad. So new bigger 4-inch size in the scope shad. So for all your scope minnow needs, new bigger size from Yamamoto. All right, I'm here in the Lawrence with our buddy Ish, and we had to stop talking about tuna fishing because we'll get distracted on that and be here for hours.
Hours.
Yeah, bluefin, yellowtail. So we got to talk about bass fishing stuff and forward-facing sonar. And so Lawrence has got a new Eagle fish finder, the new Eagle Eye.
Well, no, it's Lawrence fish finder that's called Eagle Eye.
Eagle Eye.
Yes.
But you get forward-facing sonar at a phenomenal price point.
Yeah, basically you're getting a 9-inch unit and you're getting the forward-facing transducer with still your down 2D transducer and structure scan transducer.
So getting it all in that transducer.
All in one transducer. And basically your down and your 2D is right here in this sport, and then you have your forward-facing sonar and your down scan there at $9.95.
That is such a hot deal. And it's like, you know, the barrier of entry has been so high for so long. If you're trying to
$1,500, $1,600, a lot of money.
At the minimum.
Right.
You know, to get that stuff on your boat. And maybe a lot of people just want to try it. Maybe, you know, some guys don't have a $50,000 boat and don't want to invest that kind of money into, you know, these units. But man, if you can get into the game at a phenomenal price point, and this is not like a cheap unit.
Right, no.
Yeah, it is a high performance piece of technology.
I mean, if you look at over here, you've still got all 4 split screens. You've got your mapping, you've got your 2D sonar, you've got your down scan, and you have your forward facing sonar all wrapped up in one unit. You don't have to have a box. You're not buying a separate transducer. It comes with one transducer that plugs into the back of the unit, and like I said, all for $9.95. So I think at some point in time, I think every boat is going to have this as a standard on their boat, and if they want to upgrade from there, and if you want a few more options with the 12-inch Pros or the 16-inch Pros,
you go to HDS or
you go to the
like
HDS.
That.
But yes, the new Eagle Eye is basically going to be the affordable forward-facing sonar for everybody.
That's a phenomenal way to put it, and just a great unit. And I mean, a few years ago, this would have been like light years ahead of everything. You know, the technology in sonar is advancing so fast. So not very long ago, we never even dreamed of having something like that. So now, $9.95, you can outfit your boat with a phenomenal piece of technology from Lawrence.
And you can get it at tacklewarehouse.com.
All right, so here in the Booyah booth, I'm with Chad, and we're going to talk about this new Flash Point jerkbait.
That's it, baby.
Dude, this thing is rad looking.
Rad.
It's got some cool stuff going on, and I know there's some features and some key details that I don't even know about, because we heard about this thing late, and I was like, just get it up on the website, just put it up there. And I know you guys had quite a bit of engineering and details that went into this. So break it down for us.
First thing we're going to talk about is the blade, because it's the most important feature on there. So this blade gives you a stronger return on forward-facing sonar. It's the flash point. You'll see a bright flash on your sonar, your graph when it hits the sonar hits that. The second thing is the flash that the fish see from that blade. So when you're working it, it slashes left to right really hard. And when the light hits that blade, it's just like a beacon and flashes for them. So it's super
really
unique
cool.
because typically you get a flash on the side from a jerkbait. We've been able to minimize that and put it on the head and give a fish a different look.
That's cool, because it's something else that I didn't even think about, the flash aspect of that with that blade on there.
Yeah.
You know, typically if you wanted something flashy, you got to go to like an all chrome bait or something with scales on it. And you're only getting it when it rolls side to side. But this, you can kind of, you can get a little bit of flash, but still maintain like a ghost bait like that one. That is really cool. And it looks like it's outfitted with some pretty nice hardware on it as well.
Okay, so we didn't spare anything in this. Those trebles are called SS Super Slide. They're very, very sticky. So everything in this bait is high component, so you can pull it right out of the package and go to work without risking anything.
Yeah, I mean, they are sticky
Yeah.
sharp. And I was here by yesterday, Bill almost got himself 2 or 3 times with it.
Hooked himself in the chin.
Hooked himself in the
Typical
chin.
Bill dance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there should have been in the outtake bloopers for his show for sure. But yeah, so that's great. I mean, that's always something that is always a pain when you buy a nice hard bait, and then you got to outfit all the hardware on it.
Yeah.
And on a jerk bait, you got 3 trebles, so it's just increasing the cost. But you got, and love having a jerk bait with 3 trebles because it's way
money.
better at hooking fish.
Yeah, and when you change those trebles, you're going to fluctuate, obviously, from a suspending or a sinking rate. So straight out of the package, there's no need to do anything except tie it on and go rip them.
Cool. A really cool new jerkbait here from Booyah. And available for pre-order right now.
Pre-order right now.
So go check them out. Okay, back in the Great Lakes Finesse booth, I'm with Dan. And we're going to talk about this little minnow bait they got. And I've seen a lot of minnow baits this year. I've probably filmed a few hundred of them and gone around the show. But I do want to say, this is one of the coolest minnows I've got to see this entire show. And I think we talked about it earlier. When you just look at that thing from a side profile, you wouldn't think anything of it until you flip it over and you see what's going on under this. So tell us all about this minnow, Dan.
Yeah, so we've been working on this for 2 years. I mean, we're up in the north, Great Lakes Finesse. We're known as smallmouth anglers. And 2 years ago, we were finding that fish were following our, typical jig and minnow baits. And we knew that if we could get that darting action, that hovering action, and the spiraling action, smallmouth love those actions. So we set out to develop a bait that would actually do those actions. We actually call it hover darting. This is really an action that we've never seen before.
Yeah.
It's really new to, if you're a jig and minnow guy, this is an entirely new action that will unlock a different bite. So if you're around fish that aren't reacting to the rolling or to the up and down, this is just a different look. That hovering comes from the concave belly. And so depending, and what's beautiful about this bait is that there's a number of different ways you can fish it. The first is you can cast it out and twitch it, and it's going to give you that darting, hovering action. It's going to roll.
Yeah.
What's awesome about it is you never know what it's going to do. It's so erratic, and smallmouth love that.
Yeah.
Now,
it's super cool.
Yeah. So and when you talk about powerful techniques for catching smallmouth, there's no doubt. Gussie, we kind of expose that hovering, the minnow, that moping style fishing. So we use our hanging head, and what's awesome about this is you can hover that bait and glide it if you see them on live scope out deep. But then once the bait settles below the boat, it actually behaves kind of like one of those jigging wrap type of
I see
bait.
what
So
you're
it actually
saying.
it'll
like an
jerk,
ice jig.
like an ice
so
jig.
it'll dart around in different places. Yeah,
So,
I didn't think about that with that shape on there.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just a totally different look. These fish are getting so much pressure now, and we're always trying to figure out how do we get those big pressured fish to bite. And this has just unlocked an entirely new bite for us.
And you got another head as well.
Yeah.
So which head is this one?
So that's the sneaky Swimbait head. So that's more for that that horizontal casting. You're going to cast it out, twitch it. You might want to let it fall, and it's going to spiral to the bottom. But yeah, so there's 2 different head styles. What's key is that you need a head with a weighted keel. So heavier on the bottom. It's got to be lighter on top, otherwise you're not going to get that action. If you use a typical ball head, it's just going to flip upside down and sink to the bottom. So our heads pair perfectly for this bait, the sneaky Swimbait head or the hanging head.
Yeah.
But there are other heads on the market that are heavier on the bottom. Those generally work, but ours are tuned for this bait.
That's really cool, and you can see the shape matches up perfectly, which is really cool. I bet you guys had a ton of fun up there catching smallmouth, testing this thing out, developing this bait, and probably a little hesitant to bring it out. Probably trying to keep that one to yourself for a little while.
Yeah, we used it a lot in tournaments last year.
And it'd be really cool to go out there and catch those big smallmouth on this stuff. It's got to be a ton of fun, but just something that's a little bit different. And like I said, we've seen a lot of minnow baits this year, and this is one that we're around our office, this is one that we've all been pretty pumped to try out and can't wait to get these in stock there at Tackle Warehouse. All right, so I'm in the Yo-Zuri booth and we're going to talk about some new jerk baits. I think that's what they call it, minnow baits. I'm with Spencer Sheffield, and we've got some really cool stuff. This new flat heavy minnow, and I've just learned that Spencer's been playing around with this 80 size and catching some fish with it. So tell us your experiences with it and what this bait is really designed to do.
Okay, so this 3DXR heavy flat minnow, this is the 80 size right here. What this bait is so cool about is this is a heavy. So this is a sinking bait. It's sinking about 2 foot a second. About 1.5 feet is about what I've got it on, watching on my forward facing sonar. But as this bait falls, it shimmies really hard all the way down, just level like this. And what I'll do is I'll see these fish on my forward-facing sonar, say 15 to 20 foot deep, make a good long cast. This bait's heavy, it throws really good into a wind, but I'll throw it past these fish, about 5 to 10 foot past these fish, let it shimmy all the way down towards them. Most of these fish will see this bait shimmying as it flashes with this, the way we have this prism flash in here. Yeah. They will see this thing flashing as it's falling. They will start to come to this bait. When they start to come to this bait, I'll take my rod, I'll tighten my line, and I'll just pop, like that with my rod tip up at about a 10 to 11 o'clock over my shoulder, and this bait will dart left, right as it's coming to the surface, and they'll run up there and just eat it usually head first. Where I've noticed this bait's really good for is like schooling fish. Once they've gone down, they get down, they're too deep to come up on the top water anymore. Yeah. And I've caught a lot of fish on it this winter, suspended out over timber following schools of bait as well.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, it's a unique bait. It's got a really narrow profile for the size of it.
And so you see the hump back.
Yeah, hump back. It's really flat. It's really cool. And if you're looking, so that's the 80 size that Spencer's got right there. But if you're looking for something maybe a little bit smaller, they've got it in a 60. And this tiny little guy in a 40
as well.
I mean, you can use that for trout and panfish and all kinds of stuff. But a whole series of new flat, heavy minnows from Yo-Zuri. All right, another minnow that you for sure want to check out is the new Evergreen Last Ace 128. And I'm just watching some of this footage on here. This thing has got some crazy action and does things I didn't even know it could do. So, I mean, number one, you put it on a jighead and it rolls side to side really, really well. But, I mean, some of the other things that people are doing with it is rigging it on a big EWG hook, weightless, and fishing it like how you'd fish like your normal fluke, like a soft plastic jerkbait. And this thing darts and twitches all over the place. And then I just saw on one of these clips right here, they're actually putting it on a Nico rig. So they're putting a nail weight in the head and then putting a hook right through the back and fishing like a Nico rig. And it looks just like a feeding bait fish right on the bottom. And dude, this thing is really, really cool. They've got some amazing colors. We did another rundown with our buddy Mark Mills over from Daiwa in a longer interview. But man, such a cool minnow and many applications. I think it's also gonna be a great vibrating jig trailer. And then I'm for sure gonna try it on like an underspin and a scrounger head. So many different things you can do with it, and it looks so realistic. A really cool minnow from Evergreen. All right, we're in the Strike King booth, and we've got some cool little baits here. We're with our guy, Mr. Mark Menendez. And, you know, one of these we didn't even know about till like 2 days ago. We saw an email come through. I'm like, what the heck? You guys got even more little minnow baits coming to the market. So we got the new homing and the pinger.
Right.
So two different tail designs. A couple little minnow baits for your forward-facing sonar. Mark, let's break down kind of where these play at and what kind of actions you're looking at with these.
Let's talk about this one right here. This particular little bait has the paddle tail on it, so if I need to move that bait as I make the presentation, it gives its own action. The cool thing is when this falls in this vertical position, the horizontal body falling vertical, it rocks.
So back and forth.
It has a
because
back
of the shape of it, it'll rock back.
It'll rock back and forth. The Pinger minnow has a double tail, which is a little bit different. It's a little bit unique as far as getting action. It doesn't give you that paddle tail action. But what it does do is when I have that hung in front of a fish, I've made that cast, the bait falls, I get it to the desired level, and I take a rhythmic shake, both of those little paddle tails almost create a movement like the minnow is swimming. So
That's
this is
really cool design.
It's an absolute cool presentation. It's a cool design. The way it presents itself in front of the fish is amazing, and it doesn't take a lot of skill to get all the action out of that bait that you need.
That's really cool. And I saw in the case over there, both of them come in multiple sizes, and tons of great colors. And then you guys also got a new Spotlight Jighead.
Right.
So I guess we know what Spotlight Jighead means.
Yeah, it's out there in the radar. It's balanced such that it's going to stay in that horizontal position. It has great little hooks on it here, such that your bait will not slide off. And then it's got a little stinging hook right there that is super sharp and does not have a lot of flex in it.
No.
That's one thing. Even with light line, you know, when you're out there hanging that minnow, even with light line, you've got some flex in there. So now I'll be able to reel that jig head into that fish, and it's going to penetrate, and I don't have to worry about flexing the hook anymore.
I think, you know, like what you're saying with the light line, even if you're fishing, you know, 8, 10-pound test, fluorocarbon, a lot of people are still using, you know, braided line as a main line, and you forget, you know, there ain't no stretch in that line.
The
and
stretch is minimal.
There is very minimal stretch in that short piece of fluorocarbon too, so you're really putting a lot more pressure than you think on some of those. And I think this is just a great little jig head just to have, you know?
It is.
If you just want to run it on a rage swimmer or, you know, anything, that's just a cool little jig head.
It is.
You don't need to forward-face sonar, live scope this
It's not
thing.
limited to that. You can cast it, you can use it any way you need.
And I love that little keeper system that's on there. I feel like that's a huge miss on so many jig heads that are out there on the market are keepers. And man, that thing is going to hold some plastics on there, and you're not going to lose them.
You're not going to lose those plastics. And hey, you know, we're in the tackle selling business, but when a guy buys a bag of plastics to put on, he wants to be able to use that throughout the day. You're going to be able to use one single piece of plastic much longer than you would. So it's a little economy saving there too.
Yeah, for sure. Save you on some baits and just make them last a little bit longer. Nothing worse than catching one fish and having to re-rig the entire thing. You want to get right back in there. So just keeping you out there fishing on the water longer.
Keeping that bait on there straight too. That's such a key when hanging that minnow in front of a fish.
So super cool stuff here from Strike King. Mark, thank you very much
for
welcome. Taking the time to talk to us about all the new Strike King stuff. That it's really geared towards a forward-facing sonar, and you can check it all out right now and pre-order at tacklewarehouse.com. So our buddy Steve Parks just had to show us these deer that are on his ranch that are absolutely insane. Everyone loves seeing giant bucks, but those don't even look real, Steve. I don't know what's going on at that ranch.
They're real.
But those are some absolute giants.
Born on the ranch.
But thanks for showing us the clip.
Amazing.
Yeah, thanks, Steve.
You bet.
All right, so I'm here with Matt Lee and Jacob Walker, and we're going to talk about probably the most sought after bait on the market right now. We can't ever keep these things in stock. You should look at the back order list, just all the way down the website. So the Depth Sakamata Shad. I mean, this thing has been the hottest bait of the year for forward-facing sonar fishing, and I'm sure you two have probably dipped into our inventory a little bit in all the fishing tournaments, and Jacob just won a big Tackle Warehouse Invitational event up on, it was Champlain,
yeah,
right?
Lake Champlain.
Yeah, Lake Champlain, and man, that day 5 video, all those big smallmouth, that looked like so much fun to catch those things and the way you were catching those wolf packs of fish. But let's talk about this bait. What makes it unique, and how are you guys fishing this thing?
Yeah, so it's offered in a 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 inch.
So all the sizes.
Yeah, and I'm gonna vary from, really I'm gonna mimic the bait. So like at Smith Lake, if they're feeding on a herring, I'm gonna throw a 5, 6, maybe even a 7. Like at Lake Champlain, that tournament I won, they're eating big alewives. So I was throwing the 6 inch and it mimicked it perfect. And the 4 is what I use mostly in the fall when they're feeding on the hatch from this year, the smaller bait. But when I'm fishing for big bass, Lake Gunnersville, when they're feeding on gizzard shad, I'm gonna throw the 7 inch. And this is the new owner Roundhead XL. It's very similar to the Range Rover. You've got that lead poured up and an upward point there, and that really helps that bait roll. It's offering a 4 and 5 aught. It's coming out really soon. I'm very excited about that. It's incredible what you can catch on a 7 inch too. I mean, I've caught 12 inch bass up to 9 pounders on it. So, but day in and day out, the 5 and 6 inch are my go-to.
And then we got some other options as well, the smaller ones.
Yeah, and you know, Jacob make fun of me for the 4-incher, but you do go on clear bodies of water, and it's calm, it's hot. We're in the summer right now, but it's tough to get a bite. This dude gets bit. And you asked about the Sakamata shad, the little fins on the side. It's the salt content of the bait. It's also you get the little fins that helps that bait roll. And a lot of people, when they think of a roll, they think of something really violent, like they might see in a tank demo or something. It's not. It's super subtle. These fish, this is a finesse bait. That's a finesse bait, even though it's giant, just like Jacob over there.
Technique for sure.
But it is a real subtle movement of the bait that gets bit. And having a good head for it is key. Having a good hook with those bigger baits. You know, now having this offering with a bigger hook in it is really good for those bigger baits. But also, another one that he has over there that doesn't get talked about, is not out there as much. You probably have back order. Nobody's asked me about Sakamata. I don't know what you're talking about in the first part of the video.
Yeah.
But the heavyweight, more of a salt content, and really, I think is one that's it's not out there as popular yet, but really cool in the fact that you can fish that heavyweight like that with no visible weight on it.
Yeah, just weedless on it.
You can fish it on a grass edge in the 8 to 12 foot range, and it is weedless. You can give it a different presentation, fish deeper than you ever can with a setup like that because of the salt content in the bait. And you'll notice on the pack, it'll have heavyweight, and it'll have like
those are the heavyweight models. Looks identical, but it's the salt content in the bait.
Yeah, they're both really cool baits, and we got those owner heads. You can buy them right now, and I mean, if there's any pack available right now on the website, it's probably going to be gone within the next 5 minutes.
For sure.
So you better get it while you can. So, but thank you guys both for taking the time to give us a rundown on the Sakamata Shad, probably the hottest FFS bait out there on the market right now.
No doubt.
Here, give me those back now.
Yeah, you can have it back. Yeah, I'm not giving it back. All right, so I'm here with Matt Steffen, and we're going to talk about the core tackle jig heads. Now, I'm going to say that the core tackle heads have probably been the hottest selling forward-facing sonar head. And when these things came out, I honestly didn't know what was going on with them. I was like, what is this little thing? And I couldn't believe the amount that we had. And I was like, dude, what are we doing with these thousands of these jig heads? And they absolutely flew out the door. So I don't know how many. I know we're well into the tens of thousands that we've sold. So it's been absolutely insane and something you guys kind of been messing with. But Matt is going to give us the rundown on why these jig heads are special.
Yeah, so we came out with the hover rig to combat the hover strolling technique. And hover strolling is when you take a 90-degree jig head and then you take a nail weight and you insert it in. So there's a couple of negatives with that.
Yeah.
If you just take a straight 90-degree jig hook, insert it into a bait, there's nothing really that'll hold the bait in place, right?
Yeah.
So that's one issue. The other is if you're just inserting a nail weight, every time you catch a fish, the nail weight goes flying this way or that way. So I was using the hover strolling technique and I was catching a ton of fish, but I was going through a couple bags of plastics, a couple packs of nail weights, and I was like, I think I can figure out a way to basically attach a nail weight to a jig, and that was the start of the hover rig. So we've got it in a couple of different versions. We've got the weedless versions like you've got there. We've got sizes from a size 4 all the way up to our heavy duty size like this guy right here, which is a size 6/0 hook. A lot of different weight combinations to really let you fish baits that are really micro in size for crappie all the way up to some of the big baits that guys are using for the hover strolling, mid strolling techniques.
And just so much easier and simpler to rig and less stuff to keep track of and trying to put nail weights into stuff and just an absolute pain. This makes it so much more simple, but I know this thing helps baits produce some actions that are totally unique. And why is this one so special?
Yeah, so the key to this really, and I've got one rigged up here, this is just a Jackall rhythm wag. Because the weight is transferred through the hook shank, when the bait falls, it doesn't fall like a traditional jig head, which wants to pull your bait down. It keeps the bait horizontal, and it just glides through the water column, which gives it that deadly kind of dying bait fish action that everybody's looking for, and that really triggers the fish into biting. The other thing is when you twitch the rod tip, at that point, it really kind of walks the dog, has a very erratic action, and from that standpoint, that really gives the bait something that triggers those fish to bite.
And it's really cool, and like all the options you're saying, you got them rigged up on freeloader.
That's a freeloader
with the bigger hook in it. You got small options. You got them with the weed guard, without the weed guard, and it's not just limited to the minnow baits because I've seen you guys rigging them on creature baits, which I think is super cool just to get that gliding action. And if you flip a creature bait, how many Texas rigs go by a log or a laydown and just go straight down and don't do that crazy wandering style action?
Yeah, you get one of my favorite ways to fish it is with a creature style bait. You let that bait go down to the bottom, you give the rod a quick twitch, and because it's a 90-degree jig hook, instead of the bait pulling towards you, it wants to dart left or right, and that's what a crayfish does. You got a bait, an object coming after that crayfish, and they scoot. They want to explode and get away from that object, and we can really recreate that well with the hover rig.
Yeah, I've seen some of the videos you put out, and the way you fish these things, and just the kind of reactions they have with the different style baits. It's really, really cool, and we're super stoked to have these. You can buy them right now at Tackle Warehouse. Matt, thank you so much for your time and just giving us the rundown on these jig heads and what makes them so special and unique. And we look forward to all the innovative and unique products that you guys keep coming out with.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right, we're in the Z-Man booth. I'm with my buddy Glenn, and we're gonna check out the Z-Man Graph Shads. This is another one that we've been pretty excited to see this year, and I know there's some pretty intricate little features on this thing, as far as like the line tie and kind of how you guys design this. So Glenn, give me a rundown of this bait, and then we're actually gonna show it swim around in the water and see what it actually does.
Yeah,
everything about this bait, and this went through a long, like 2-year process of designing and fixing this and that, but everything about this is designed to throw back a signal.
Yeah.
You know, we want something that's going to show up as a strong image on that screen. So everything about this, the surface area of the head, designed to throw back a signal. There's an air pocket in the body to throw back a signal.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. The scale pattern's also designed to help throw back a signal.
Yeah.
Right? Now, what's really cool about this is the line tie is very unique. It's a line-through jig head.
Yeah, we saw that.
Right.
But I didn't know about the pocket in it. You know, it's just like I've seen this thing like 3 or 4 times, and I didn't know about the air pocket.
Yeah, it's an air bladder. So just like the fish has, you got an air bladder, so it shows
Yeah.
up on the radar. So we put the line tie down here so that when this is here, you know, the biggest problem with like a ball head jig and a minnow, your knot slides around, your orientation isn't going to be safe. You got to fix it. This
It's a
keeps
pain,
it.
and you got to do all kinds of tricky little things to like keep that knot perfectly straight
Exactly.
up.
You're tightening it down, you're moving it, you're always fussing with it.
Yeah.
Well, this, you don't have to fuss with it anymore.
That's
so it's
cool.
designed to just always be right there.
Yeah.
And then the tail design itself, see, it's got that fat part on the bottom and the skinny part on top.
Yeah. At first glance, I thought it was just a regular forked tail, but the bottom part of the fork is actually way thicker than the top part.
Right, and part of that is because of the buoyancy of this material.
Yeah.
When you have a thick part on the bottom and the skinny part on top, they kind of fight each other.
Oh, that's cool.
So it makes it constantly move in the water. So even if you're dead sticking, it's going to be doing something.
Yeah.
Right, and that's the cool part about it. So when I put this in the water, you'll see that the orientation is always going to be
perfectly flat.
Perfectly flat the way you want it.
Yeah.
And you can see there's always some movement with the tail.
Yeah, you're not even moving that rod, and
No,
it's like moving around.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I'm sure on those really picky bites and just super tough fisheries, you just hold that thing and just force yourself. You know that it's doing something, and you're like, don't shake it, don't shake it, don't shake it, because you know it's doing something down there.
That's going to
but
be
that
the
thing
hardest
looks
part.
just like it looks like a little panic shad down
It
there.
does. And so, any little movement I do with the rod, just even tapping the rod,
Yeah.
you can see it automatically translates down to the tail. Everything gets transmitted down there. It all moves. It's just a very natural presentation.
Yeah.
You know?
So a really cool bait, new forward-facing sonar bait. But there's
Yeah.
no reason why you can't just go out and fish that thing. But man, that is a deadly-looking little minnow, and it's up for pre-order right now at tacklewarehouse.com. I think it's going to wrap up our whole forward-facing sonar segment video. And it was a haul. Thanks for everyone for sticking with us. And if you want to go check out all this gear, you can head over to tacklewarehouse.com.
Got it.